Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdu wa thana'u lillahi rabbil alameen. Nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi. Wa nashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. Wa anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Arsalahu bil huda wa din al-haq liyudhhirahu ala dini kullih walau kariha al-mushrikun. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله واتباع أمره. I admonish you and remind myself also that we should nurture within ourselves this quality of taqwa. Constantly we should be conscious of God, always think about Him. As we make every decision, He should be the first thought, so that we are constantly trying to please Him with everything that we do and always avoiding His displeasure. I'd like to speak to you today in this khutbah about something. It's kind of a continuation of talks I've given in the past about grooming and the sunnahs around our appearance and how we should take care of ourselves, especially in public. So in the past, I've shared some ideas about how to dress and what is appropriate. And we've seen that in the Quran, Allah has a high emphasis on clothing as a blessing that He sent down to Adam and Eve, our father and mother, as a way to guard their privacy, to guard their bodies, and also to beautify themselves. And this is a blessing, and He doesn't like for us to deny His blessings, to reject His blessings. When He's given us a blessing, He likes us to adorn ourselves with that blessing, to show off, not for riya, but to display it, to be proud that Allah has given me this blessing. It's His blessing that He's given to me, and I should beautify myself with that blessing. I want to continue with this and speak a little bit about grooming of hair and some of the sunnahs that we have around that. I'll start with the verses from Surah Al-A'raf. Allah says, subhanahu wa ta'ala, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya Bani Adam, قَدْ أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ لِبَاسًا يُوَارِي سَوْآتِكُمْ وَرِيشًا. O children of Adam, we have sent down, now not sent down meaning He's, like our clothes come from the sky, but sent down meaning He's decreed that we should wear clothing. He's given us the intelligence to manufacture that clothing, the ingenuity to figure out how to design clothing and use the fabrics and use the fibers and the skins and all the different technology that we have. That's all from Allah, that He's given us that intelligence to be able to come up with ideas for clothing. But the main impetus for the desire to clothe ourselves is from Allah. And then the ingenuity and the guidance that we should clothe ourselves, we should make ourselves decent, and we should beautify ourselves with clothing. This is from Allah. So He sent all of this down, both for guarding our privacy. Saw'ah is the word that the Quran uses for our nakedness. The thing that would disturb me if it was exposed to people, that's my saw'ah, my nakedness, and that's something I want to cover. I want to conceal with my clothing. And also as a rish. Rish is used in Arabic for the decorative feathers on birds. The peacock feather and the turkey and those the ones that show off and have those fancy feathers, that's called rish. And so it's used metaphorically for our clothing of beautification and adornment also. So one of the purposes for which Allah has given us clothing is for decency, but not just bare minimum decency, that I just put something on, as long as it covers me up, that's good enough. But it also should be a way for me to beautify myself in public, at home, anywhere when people are around. وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ ذَلِكَ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَذَّكَّرُونَ. I won't focus on that part. It's a very important part of the verse, but right now I want to focus on the clothing and the sunnahs around that. Then in another verse, a few verses later, He says, يَا بَنِي آدَمْ خُذُوا زِينَتَكُمْ عِنْدَ كُلِّ مَسْجِدٍ وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. O children of Adam, He says, adorn yourselves. Take up adornment and adorn yourselves every time you pray. All right? So whether it's at the masjid, he says عند كل مسجد, but our commentators say that it's not talking about the physical space of the masjid only. It's at every time of sajda, at every time of prayer, then this is a time when you should renew your beautification, look at yourself in the mirror, see how you look, make sure you have the best clothes on, comb your hair, groom yourself, wash yourself, brush your teeth, all the things that you would do to make yourself look presentable, do that at prayer times. And we know that prayer is supposed to be a microcosm for our life. So those things that are important for prayer are not just for prayer and then you forget about it and go about your life. It's supposed to be that you do it for prayer, and then that gives you practice to then do it until the next prayer. And then that you renew it again with a concerted effort for the prayer, and then it carries over to the next prayer. So it should overflow into life, and then your whole life should have these kinds of elements in it. So the beautification for prayer is for our life in general. All right, let me share a couple of ahadith that we have with regard to the grooming of hair. This is from Al-Kafi. We have a whole bab in Al-Kafi about az-zi wa tazayyun, that your appearance, what you wear, how you beautify yourself. And then there are ahadith that are divided up into all the different things you can think of. Different parts of your body, your hair on your head, your beard, your mustache, your clothing, your body hair, nails, everything you can think of. We have guidance from the Ahlul Bayt. What the Prophet's custom was, what he used to do, how he used to take care of these different things, the importance that he would give to these kinds of things, how he would admonish his companions, and the Imams also would admonish their companions when they saw that they were out of line and not dressing correctly, not grooming themselves correctly. They would remind them that this was the sunnah of the Prophet to do such and such. So one hadith I'll share with you is from Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq alayhi as-salam. قال أبصر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله رجلا شعثا شعر رأسه وسخة ثيابه سيئة حاله فقال رسول الله من الدين المتعة وإظهار النعمة. Rasulullah saw a man whose hair was messed up. Sha'ath, we know this word from ziyarat of Imam Hussein. The angels who are described when they came to help him and then they were unsuccessful or they were rejected depending on different traditions, and now they are there circling around the grave of Imam Hussein. They're shu'thun ghubrun. Shu'th means your hair is all disheveled. Ash'ath, Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais is one of the famous munafiqeen of history. Al-Ash'ath, I don't know what his hair looked like, but his name or his title was messed up hair. Messy hair, disheveled hair. So shu'th is the plural of that, and ghubr, aghbar would be covered in dust from ghubar. So these angels are shu'thun ghubrun, they're disheveled. Now, that's not the ideal, we're not supposed to look like that, but in certain cases they're in mourning. At the time of mourning, there you don't pay attention to how good you look and whether your hair is just right and these kinds of things. There, the main thing is mourning for this person who's dead and who's beloved to you, especially Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And so actually it's recommended not to take care of our outer appearance on the day of Ashura, for instance. To wear very simple clothes. Sometimes even people will rub dirt on themselves, either khaki shifa or other dirt, and make themselves look like those angels because they want to show Allah that we are also in mourning, we're affected by this. So that's not the ideal for daily business. That's the ideal because of Imam Hussein. Then the black that you're normally supposed to wear all of a sudden becomes recommended because it's for mourning. So this person was sha'ithan sha'ru ra'sihi. His hair was all messed up on his head. His clothing was dirty. Right? Whether it's actually dirty or smelly or at least unironed, unkempt. And his overall appearance was also unkempt. So Rasulullah's reminder to this person is that min ad-din al-mut'ah. Mut'ah here, istimta' means to enjoy the blessings of Allah. Like part of the deen is to enjoy the blessings of Allah. If Allah has given you the ability to dress well, to dress cleanly, Even if you don't have fancy clothes or expensive clothes or any of those kinds of things, that's not important. But clean clothes, well taken care of clothes is important. If you have simple clothing, you can still wash it. Water doesn't take anything. Everyone, even a poor person, has access to some water to clean the clothes, even if they can't buy new clothes. And you have the ability to take care of it. If you can't iron it, all of us can iron our clothes, but if you can't iron it, then there are other ways to make it look very nice as you dry it, as you hang it. So it looks very nice once you wear it. It's crisp and it looks very nice. Combing your hair doesn't take any wealth that only rich people can bother to comb their hair. It's a very simple thing. You can use a comb, you can use your fingers, a little water, a little oil, a little mousse or whatever you might use, but you can use some different kinds of things to make yourself look decent. It doesn't take anything, but this is something Allah wants. Min ad-din al-mut'a. Enjoying the blessings of Allah yourself. And then he says not only for you to enjoy it, but also idharun ni'mah. For others also to display the blessings of Allah is also part of the deen. Not for riya. We talked about riya a lot. We shouldn't be scared of riya all the time whenever we talk about displaying something. Displaying here doesn't mean to show off and show you how great I am and show you how, it's not to brag about myself. It's simply to say that I have blessings of Allah and I want to use them, I want to display them, that whatever He's given me, I want people to also see it. So these are parts of the deen, and the Prophet looks at this person and reminds him of this. What I notice sometimes in our community is that, especially younger people, when they get into their teenage years, they kind of get a mind of their own. And even if their father or their mother used to remind them when they're younger that you need to comb your hair. Like, look in the mirror before you go out. Like, look how you look. You're going to the masjid and you're wearing a t-shirt and jeans. Your jeans are dragging on the ground and they're tattered at the bottom. How can you wear something like this in public? Right? You have hair that's so long, it doesn't look nice. It's not respectable to wear this kind of hair. It doesn't look good for you. It doesn't reflect well on us as a family. Like, go to the barber. If you can't afford that for whatever reason, I'll cut your hair. Get a friend to cut your hair. You cut each other's hair. Right? It doesn't take any extra wealth, any extra luxury to use some scissors and snip your hair. Right? All it takes is attention. All it takes is a little bit of care to say, I want to look decent, I want to look good, it makes me feel good. It's a blessing of Allah that He's given me the ability to now beautify myself. Not all of us are good looking, but we can do a lot by way of grooming ourselves to do the best with whatever we have. That's what's expected of us. And that actually means a lot more. Right? Even if I don't look good, even if I don't have hair, whatever hair I have, I try to take good care to make sure that it's all groomed very nicely. That's the best I can do. I can't make my hair grow, but I can take very good care of the hair that I have. And that's all that's expected of me. I can't change the way my face looks. We're not expected to go through plastic surgery to make ourselves look beautiful in that way. But whatever we have, groom it. Make it look good as possible. A second tradition I'll share with you. Recite with salawat ala Muhammad wa ali. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله بئس العبد القاذورة. Qadhar is a word that's used for filth. كل شيء لك طاهر حتى تعلم أنه قذر. It's a famous hadith of the sixth Imam that everything in the universe is tahir and should be considered tahir until you have certainty that it's become najis. Right? We are supposed to be on our toes all the time, assuming everything's najis and I don't want to touch anything, I don't want to go to the bathroom, I don't want to touch anything. No, we're supposed to take it easy, assume everything's tahir until we have knowledge that it's qadhr and najis. This qadhura, one of our scholars, Fayd al-Kashani and al-Wafi, he explains that it's min al-rijal alladhi la yubali ma qala wa ma sana'a. A person who doesn't care what he says, what he does, it's a careless kind of a person. That's known as a qadhura. He says, here, Shaykh al-Kulaini has understood that this is referring to the way he looks. He's someone who doesn't care. They're barefoot, they're wearing their sweatpants at home, t-shirt, they have to go to the masjid, they walk out just like that, never glance in the mirror, who cares what I look like, who cares, it doesn't matter. That's a qadura. Yeah, that kind of carelessness about your looks is against the deen. Bi'sa al-abd, what a terrible servant of Allah is this person who has that kind of attitude. Whatever you're wearing, just you wear it, whether it's to bed, you come with your pajamas and you come out of the house and you present yourself to people outside with the same pajamas you slept in. You come to the masjid with the same casual clothes you were playing in or lounging around at home in. That kind of carelessness about how you look is against the deen. What a terrible servant. You're denying the blessings of Allah. You're not taking advantage of the blessings. You're ungrateful, and if you are ungrateful for His blessings, He will retract them. A third tradition, also from Al-Kafi, عن أبي بصير عن أبي عبد الله الصادق عليه السلام. قال أمير المؤمنين ليتزين أحدكم لأخيه المسلم كما يتزين للغريب الذي يحب أن يراه في أحسن الهيئة. So Imam Ali alayhi salam, he taps into this natural impulse that we have. Oftentimes when we're going to meet a new person, there we take care. The first day you're going to go to school, kids have a lot of fun going shopping and getting some new clothes for the first day of school. You're going to go for a new job interview, you buy a new shirt, new outfit, whatever it is. The first day of work, you want to make a good impression. So we have that sense that the first impression is important, and so I want to dress up for that. So that's for the gharib. Gharib in Arabic doesn't mean strange. Gharib means a stranger. Like somebody that you don't know, somebody you're not familiar with, not an old friend, not a family member. So the Imam says that the same way you have that kind of attention when you're going to meet someone new and you want to make a good first impression and you take care of how you're dressed, how you've groomed yourself, have that same kind of attention li akhihi al-Muslim. And when you meet your fellow brethren in Islam, you should have that same kind of attention. Don't say, oh, they're my Muslim friends. It's just in the masjid. No big deal. No one important is going to be there. It's just family. My family's coming over. Oftentimes you go over to someone's house and the host sometimes dresses very badly. It's like they couldn't even bother dressing up for you. So you're all dressed up because you've come and shown respect to the host, and the host has shown you disrespect by dressing down. And the kind of clothes that they wear lounging around the house, that's the same clothing they come out and they greet you. That should not be the way. The same kind of attention you would pay if you were to leave the house and go out to meet people who are strangers, at least pay the same courtesy to your own Muslim brethren when they come to your house, or you go to their house, or you meet in the masjid, or whatever it may be. Take care of these interactions and show that respect. It's a kind of honoring of the person as well. Not only it's self-respect, right, but it's also honoring the person. I think enough about your opinion and your presence that I'm willing to go out of my way to improve my appearance when I'm going to meet you. That is a very important implicit message that we should give to one another. A fourth tradition, also from Al-Kafi, from Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq alayhi salam again. قال إن الله عز وجل يحب الجمال والتجمل ويبغض البؤس والتباؤس or التبأس. This is something you should memorize. إن الله جميل يحب الجمال. That's a hadith you probably heard many times. It's a good one to memorize. It's one of those muhkamat. If you have that, then all these other ideas about tazayyun and dressing up and grooming, everything else comes from this. Why do we want to do it? Because we're trying to embody and reflect this attribute of Allah. Allah is Jameel. He's beautiful. He's the source of beauty. He is beauty itself. Everything that's beautiful, it's a manifestation of that beauty that He's created. So He is beautiful and He loves beauty. So He loves for us to be beautiful. He loves for us to groom ourselves, to be handsome, to all of that stuff. So He loves beauty. He loves for us to beautify ourselves, and He hates the opposite. يُبْغِضُ الْبُؤْسَ وَالتَّبَأُّسَ. And sometimes people think that to show humility, to show more spirituality, I should abandon these words. This is all dunya. Right? This is dunya and I should abandon it. If I want to be a more religious and spiritual person, it's going to be the one who dresses badly. I should show that I don't care about fashion and and dunyawi beauty. That's not important. It's my character that's important. Right? So we think that there's a separation between that. If I want to focus on my character and who I am as a person and my worship of Allah, then I should leave off all of this beauty. And so living like a poor person, either I'm a poor person, I should make myself poor and abandon dunya, give it away, don't pursue it, don't work hard for dunya, because that's all dunya. Hubbu dunya ra'su kulli khati'a is in our mind. As in a one-sided, lopsided way, we think that if I have any sort of attachment and love of dunya, any sort of love of dunya or engagement with dunya, then that's evil. And so I should abandon dunya, not pursue it, and even if I happen to have it and I can't get rid of it, then at least act like I don't have it, act poor. So al-bu's, what taba'us is to put on the show of being poor, to dress like a poor person. I should wear old clothes. I should just wear the same clothes over and over again for decades. Because buying new clothes is dunya, hubbu dunya. Right? So that kind of an attitude is a wrong attitude. Like hubbu dunya that's being talked about is attachment to dunya. Seeing the dunya as an ends instead of a means. But the sunnah of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt is to use the dunya, to take advantage of the dunya. Whatever's there is a blessing from Allah. It's something that we should be grateful for, and part of being grateful is not just saying shukran lillah, but also using it in a way that's pleasing to the Creator and the giver of that blessing. So now, taking advantage of whatever wealth I might have, whatever clothing and other paraphernalia I might have, is not hubbu dunya in and of itself. It could be. It depends on my attitude towards it. But it's perfectly in line with being a religious person, a spiritual person connected to Allah, being indifferent to the dunya and still using whatever dunya I have to beautify myself. And Allah actually loves this more because now you're manifesting Allah is not poor and haggardly and ugly and those kinds of things. He doesn't want us to be like that either. He wants us to reflect His attributes, not the opposite of His attributes. Who's more spiritual than the Prophet and the Imams, and they are advocating this. They themselves practice it, and they also advocate that others should practice it. The next tradition, also from Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, لِعُبَيْدِ ibn Ziyad, إِظْهَارُ النِّعْمَةِ أَحَبُّ إِلَى اللَّهِ مِنْ صِيَانَتِهَا فَإِيَّاكَ أَن تَتَزَيَّنْ إِلَّا فِي أَحْسَنِ زِيِّ قَوْمِكَ. So another attitude someone might have is that I don't want to make any show of my wealth. I am very wealthy, alhamdulillah, and I don't want people to really know about that. Either I don't want to flaunt it, or I don't want people to know how much I have, because then fundraisers will always look towards me, for instance. People who are poor and need money, they'll always look towards me, thinking that, he's dressing so nicely, he must be very wealthy, let me go and ask him. And then that will be a big burden on me, that I always have to keep on saying no to everyone, because they keep on looking to me because they think I'm very wealthy. So Imam tries to preempt this kind of thought, and he says that displaying your ni'mah that you have is more beloved in Allah's eyes than that you safeguard that blessing and keep it protected so that nobody sees it or uses it or anything like that. Having that big bank account or having those assets, but then living in a way and having a front that shows that, oh no, I'm very simple, I'm very poor, I don't really have very much. People think that I have a big bank account, but I don't really. That kind of an attitude on the surface to hide the blessings that Allah has given you, that's not the right way. If He's giving you the blessings, then you should show it as well. Let people know that I have wealth. Again, not for the sake of arrogance, not for the sake of showing that I'm so superior to you, because look, Allah loves me, He hates you. Or I work so hard and it's all because of my hard work that I've gotten this whole empire. Not for those attitudes, of course. But with the right attitudes, to show people that I have the wealth, alhamdulillah, Allah's given plenty to me. I'm using it on myself and I'm willing to use it on others as well. I can build, I can help. I'm looking for opportunities to see how I can use the blessings that Allah has given me. I take care of myself, I take care of my family, and I'll take care of the people around me to the best ability I have. That's the right thing, that's the way, that's what Allah likes, not for you to keep it and hide it away so no one sees it. Then he says, فَإِيَّاكَ أَن تَتَزَيَّنَ إِلَّا فِي أَحْسَنِ زِيِّ قَوْمِكَ. So one of the points that sometimes we slip up on, if you go and read a book on Islamic adab, we have a great book by Allama Tabatabai, the commentator of Quran. It's called Sunanun Nabi. Sunanun Nabi has been translated into English also very well. And so he's collected, Allama Tabatabai, with his vast knowledge. He once, my teachers told me that once he started writing commentary on Bihar al-Anwar. He started writing footnotes, and he only got to maybe the first couple of volumes in the Kitab al-Tawheed, and there was a council of some of the elders of the Hawza who called him and asked him, what are you doing? What's the idea behind this? They were kind of concerned because of his study of philosophy and irfan and these kinds of things. They didn't want those ideas to creep into his commentary. And Allama Tabatabai's question to them was, who amongst you has ever read Bihar al-Anwar cover to cover? 114 volumes of hadith, and nobody had. And these are all maraja of the time. He said, I've read it twice through, completely, made a study of the entire Bihar from cover to cover twice in my lifetime until now. And unfortunately he stopped. He only put the commentary on the first couple of volumes. That's all we have. The rest of it is without. But he has, with his vast knowledge, he has collected every single hadith from Shi'i and Sunni sources. Of course, Sunni sources that are in line with Shi'i sources. And he's put them into the Sunnah al-Nabi. It's just one volume, but everything that has to do with the Prophet's Sunnah, how he used to do things, how he used to dress, how he used to behave, all those kinds of things. So in this, when you read this book, sometimes you get slipped up because, for instance, it'll say that the Prophet used to, وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. The interpretation of this verse is shorten your clothing. Right? It seems like it should be purify your clothing, but the idea hadith tell us is actually shorten your clothing, because if you have long trailing clothing, then it's more likely to get dirty. And sometimes, like the rich, the people who had excess money, they're the ones who could afford to have clothing. You see, like in fashion and brides' clothing and stuff, they'll have this long train that comes behind that's dragging on the ground. Well, that's obviously not very practical clothing, and it's actually very bad clothing, because if you want to pray and be tahir and have your libas also tahir, then how can you drag it across the entire, across the ground and then expect that it's going to be tahir when you go to pray? Right? So having long clothing, long sleeves that are dipping into your food and getting in the way as you're doing things, right, that's not good. It should be short and fitting in a way where when you're doing your activities, you're not getting it all dirty. Your pants also. Right? Sometimes it's a fashion amongst people to have long pants, especially jeans. People tend to keep them long and then they start trailing on the ground. That's bad. That's against this verse, وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. Right? And so we read that actually the Prophet, his sunnah was to shorten his pants up to the ankles. And so we say, so we should do that. But what many of our Ahlul Sunnah brothers do is, that's correct. That's according to the sunnah. So yes, it is according to the word of the sunnah. But why I mention this example is that the spirit of the sunnah is more important. And that's for the mujtahid to figure out. Is the action itself, this particular formula of wearing the clothing so your pants are up to your ankles, is that what is being recommended? That we should now do that? Or is there some spirit behind it? Or now has some association been created in culture that if you do it, you'll be associated with that group? That's a wrong group. So if that association is now there, even though it was originally part of the sunnah to wear clothes like that, but if now it becomes that if you dress like that, everyone will look at you and say, the Sunnis come. This person must be Salafi or Wahhabi. now it's become a hallmark of that group. And we don't want to be associated with that group. So we have to abandon that, the word of that sunnah. Now this is the istifta'at of Shaykh Sistani also. So I'm not just saying it based on my own ijtihad. This is something I've posed a question to try to figure out these things, and the answer has come. Yeah, so sometimes even like, if you look at these ahadith, shaving the mustache is recommended for men. Having the beard 1 fist length, you grab your beard and cut off whatever's excess, then trim it and make it look nice. Not longer than that. Longer than that is supposed to be the sign of a ahmaq, a fool. Right? But then shaving the mustache is also recommended. But again, that over time has become associated with one group of Sunnis, the Hanafis. They also do that. They'll have a beard, but then no mustache. In America, the Amish and some of these people, they have that kind of a style of beard. So tashabbuh, when we start to do something that has become a hallmark of another group, which is a deviant group, then we have to abandon that. We don't want to associate ourselves with that group or that group. We want to do things that are characteristically Shi'i and that are attractive, that are good reflections of our character and the school that we belong to. And we want to avoid those kinds of negative associations. So even if in the hadith you see that it's recommended to shave your mustache and keep your beard, we're not allowed to do that anymore. Not that it's haram, it could be haram because of the association. People look at you and say, oh, you're one of them. And you come into the masjid, everyone says, oh, Sunnis come. That kind of association, that makes it so that it's no longer recommended to do that. Yeah, so it's a little bit more complicated than just seeing a hadith and saying the Prophet used to do such and such, so now I do it. Yeah, we have to see, whenever we want to act on a teaching of hadith, whenever we want to act on a verse of Quran, it has to go through the filter of ijtihad to make sure that this is actually a duty that I'm allowed to do, and what are the parameters, what are the do's and don'ts, so that I can act on the sunnah, not that I'm doing my own ijtihad and acting on a hadith that may be weak, may be rejected by our scholars, may be time-bound, and now it's expired, and might now be overruled or kind of overruled by some other secondary ruling like these associations and so forth. So that's more complicated than just acting on everything that we read. So he says, إِيَّاكَ أَن تَتَزَيَّنْ إِلَّا بِأَحْسَنِ زِيِّ قَوْمِكَ. I admonish you that when you beautify yourself in the best way that your people beautify themselves. That ziyul qawm is really important. We refer to this as urf. In our fiqh, urf is what's customary. So some things may have been customary in a previous generation, in a different culture, in a different time, and may not be customary now. Maybe an example would be, for instance, the style of chador that's worn by religious people in Iran, which is different from the style that's worn in Iraq, for instance. So in those cultures and those places, those who are devout, they dress in with this particular chador. But now if you transport that same chador and now wear that here in America, it may not be appropriate. Right? Even though there's nothing wrong, you're covering, of course, in a way that's very decent, but if the style has associations that are not appropriate and it stands out, it draws a negative attention, right? Then that shows you that the customs sometimes vary from place to place. And so as long as you're within the parameters of the fiqh, there's an additional element of custom that you also have to take into account. And you don't want to do things that are outside of that custom. If we dress in ways that attracts negative attention and people point at you and laugh at you and say, oh, look, these people look ridiculous because they're dressing in these clothes, that's not the way we should be dressing. So Muslims can never really be at the cutting edge of fashion. If you're at the cutting edge of fashion, then you're wearing what's called libasul shuhra. You should be right in the middle of custom. What is the appropriate clothing? What is considered dignified, appropriate clothing for a respectable person in your community, in your culture? That's what a Muslim should wear. Not that, oh, there's some latest fashion and people now, they're shaving their beards like this with these angles, or they're cutting their hair this way because of this soccer star. And so now I style my hair based on that. But then I come to the masjid and I stand out, because that's not a decent way for for the Muslims to dress or to groom ourselves. And people look at you and say, oh, what kind of person, like what kind of haircut does he have? What kind of clothing is he wearing? This is very odd. It's not decent for the Muslims. That's not the kind of clothing we can wear. Right? You want to dress right in the middle of what is dignified and decent and what reflects well on you and your character, reflects well on your family, reflects well on our community. When people see you, they look at you and say, mashallah, this must be a Muslim because of the way he's dressed. And it's a positive thing, not a negative thing. He has a beard, but it's so well groomed. This must be one of those Shia. I've seen some other Muslims, for instance, who have disheveled beards, but no, every time I see a Shi'i Muslim, they have beards and their beards are well groomed. They look very nice. They look very attractive. Like those kinds of characteristics are what we want to make hallmarks of ourselves. Not that they say, oh, he has bad breath, that must be a Muslim. Oh, he looks very shabby, that must be a Muslim. He has holes in his socks, that must be a Muslim. Those should not be the characteristics that we are recognized by. It should be those outstanding characteristics. Allah, we ask you to shower your mercy and blessings on Muhammad and the family of Muhammad. Allahumma ghfir lil mu'minina wal mu'minat wal muslimina wal muslimat al ahya'i minhum wal amwat. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Qul huwa Allahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. اللهم صل على محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على رسولك محمد وعلى وليه علي وعلى فاطمة والحسن والحسين وعلي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والحجة بن الحسن القائم المهدي صلوات الله عليهم أجمعين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات. Once again, I admonish all of us to try to foster taqwa within ourselves. And really all of these different things, every teaching that we're trying to give to you is a reminder of taqwa. Even if it's not about halal and haram, if it's about a mustahab, if it's about a makruh, if it's about some belief that we want to strengthen within ourselves, all of this is a way to bring Allah into our minds, put His consciousness into our practice, and inshallah make us muttaqeen. Let me share a little bit of one more hadith briefly, and then we'll close and go for prayer. Actually, I'll have to leave that to it. So, I had a whole group of hadith. I'll share inshallah on a different occasion. So the lesson that we need to take away from this is a continuation of that importance of the zina that Allah has created for us. Now, let me just also address this. So zina, we talk about zina usually when we're talking about women's dress. That women are not allowed to have any zina when they are in public, around non-mahrams. And that is correct. Right? So this zina that we're talking about here, for men it could be more adornment. If that's appropriate for the environment and the culture that you live in, then whatever adornment that a man wears is not a problem. But what it means for women is that the way they dress, the attention to the details of their clothing, that it be clean, that it be decent, that it be well-fitting, that it look good, that's there for the women and the men. That's a common element for both. And then this idea of dressing up does not only extend to outside of the home, to public, it should also be within the home. And that's also an important thing that sometimes gets overlooked. We think that when I go outside, I should dress up. Right? Men tend to be guilty of this probably more than women. And outside, I might dress up, but when I go home, then I kick back and I'll wear something sloppy and tattered and a t-shirt and a bunion and those kinds of things. It's just my wife and kids, who cares? That shouldn't be the attitude at home. Right? This tazayyun, looking good, it's all around, it's part of who we are and who we should become. Right? Not only for others, but also at home. And we have a hadith that scold men and say that if women go for haram, right, it's because of tarkut tahiyya with men, meaning tahiyya is looking after yourself, attending to your appearance, grooming yourself, making sure you look good. Right? It shouldn't be that you, like for a woman dresses up and wears her best, and if she does wear makeup and jewelry, which is haram, but she does it for outside, but when she comes home, she takes it all off and now she relaxes. I'm not advocating for the jewelry and the makeup, but that attitude of dressing up for the outside and then coming home and dressing down, that's wrong. It should be just the opposite. When you go out, you don't dress badly, you dress well, but you're dressed professionally, cleanly, decently, with all the proper hijab. And then when you come home, that's when you can take all of that off, and now you can wear your fancy clothes, your dressy clothes, your jewelry, and those kinds of things, because now you're on maharim in your household. But it goes also for men. When you go outside, you have one kind of dressing up for outside, you should have a different kind of dressing up for inside. If you need a more comfortable kind of dressing up, you can be comfortable and also look very good and be attentive to all of these things. Cleanliness, grooming, the way your physique is, the way you're dressed, the kinds of clothing, how it's kept, whether it's clean, pressed, all those things are extremely important, and they should be hallmarks of the Muslim. And how we come to the masjid is one example of that. Right? So don't come to the masjid wearing sloppy clothes. Don't come to the masjid wearing t-shirts. And one of the recurring problems that we've had in our jama'ah, because we don't have a barrier, men need to wear clothing where the shirts are long. And where they're at very least tucked in very well, very securely. Or better than that is even long clothing that covers, just like we advocate for our women to wear longer shirts, longer clothing that goes past their waist and hip areas. So men also should wear clothing that goes down. Because when you go for sajda, when you sit in julus, you're exposed and the women are right behind you. You should be embarrassed. And oftentimes I'll have people next to me and I feel embarrassed, or someone's in front of me, I feel embarrassed as a fellow man. Imagine what the women must feel. That's why some of them like to sit on that side of the barrier, so they don't have to deal with looking at that aspect of their brothers in faith. Yeah, so be very conscious of these things. It improves the whole atmosphere of our community, it improves your own personal piety, and inshallah brings us in line with the sunnah of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصلي لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر